There's a specific kind of pain no one talks about. The kind where you walk into a room and feel yourself disappear, not rejected, not attacked, just unseen. Like the air adjusts itself around you and moves on. You felt it. At work, when someone else takes credit for what you built, and you sit there with this weird half smile frozen on your face because saying anything would make you look small. In a group of friends, when you say something real and 3 seconds later the conversation keeps going like you never spoke, and you spend the next 20 minutes wondering if your voice even came out of your throat. With a woman, when she looks at you, and you can see the exact moment her eyes stop registering you as a man and start registering you as furniture. And somewhere deep, under the layers of pretending it doesn't matter, a quiet voice starts whispering the same thing it's whispered for years. Maybe I'm just not enough. Maybe the reason nobody sees me is because there's nothing here to see. Here's what I need you to understand tonight. That voice is lying to you, and the lie is costing you your life. Because what you've been calling invisibility isn't a curse, it's a door. And most men die without ever learning how to walk through it. They spend 40, 50, 60 years standing in front of that door, banging on it, trying to get the world to open it from the other side, not knowing that the handle was always on their side, not knowing that the moment they stopped banging and just turned it, everything they had been starving for would be waiting on the other side. Tonight, we're going to turn that handle together. Think about the last time you tried to prove yourself. Really think about it. Not the win, the moment before the win, the moment where you were performing, straining, adjusting your voice half an octave because you wanted them to finally get it, finally see what you actually are. Maybe it was a meeting where you had the right answer and you watched someone less capable than you walk out with the credit, and you told yourself the whole ride home that next time you'd speak up earlier. Maybe it was a family dinner where you mentioned something you accomplished and your uncle just nodded and changed the subject to his son, and you felt a heat climb up the back of your neck that you pretended was just the wine. Maybe it was a text message you rewrote 11 times, trying to find the exact words that would make her respond the way she used to. You tell yourself you don't care. You tell yourself you're above it. But then you check your phone. You scroll. You see someone you went to school with. Someone you know isn't smarter than you, isn't more disciplined than you, posting about their new life, their new car, their new woman, and something in your chest goes tight. Here's the part nobody tells you. The tightness isn't ambition. It's not motivation. It's a wound. A wound that formed somewhere back there. Maybe when you were 8, maybe when you were 15, when you first learned that being good wasn't enough, that you had to be seen being good. And if you weren't seen, you didn't exist. Maybe it was a teacher who praised the kid next to you for a worse answer than yours. Maybe it was a father who couldn't look up from the newspaper when you showed him the thing you'd made. Maybe it was a moment on a playground where you were the last one called, or the one never called at all. A lot of men have a file cabinet full of those moments, and they carry it around their whole lives, not realizing they're still organizing their entire adult existence around the opinions of people who stopped paying attention 20 years ago. I'll tell you something. I spent most of my 20s living inside that wound. I remember walking home one night after a party where I'd been the funniest guy in the room, and getting to my apartment, closing the door behind me, and feeling completely empty, because none of it counted unless someone confirmed it. That was my prison. And a lot of you are sitting in the same cell right now, pretending it's a throne. That wound is running your life. It's picking your job. It's picking your friends. It's picking the woman you chase and the one you settle for. It's picking your hobbies, because you've got this filter that screens everything through one question first. Will this make me look like somebody? And if the answer isn't yes, you don't even notice the thing exists. You've been outsourcing the decision of what a valuable life looks like to a crowd that doesn't even know your name. And tonight, we're going to end its grip. I'm going to show you something most men never figure out. I'm going to show you why the men who end up dangerous, truly dangerous, the kind of dangerous that makes rooms shift when they walk in, almost always started as invisible. Not loud, not charming, not popular, invisible. And I'm going to show you how to take the thing you've hated most about yourself, that feeling of being passed over, talked through, overlooked, and turn it into the exact weapon that makes you untouchable. Not through revenge, Not through proving, not through some fantasy highlight reel where you show up at the reunion and everyone's jaw drops. Through something quieter than that. Something that stays with you long after you close this video. Something that nobody can take from you, because it was never theirs to give. Stay with me. This isn't going to be the version of this message you've heard 1,000 times. This is going to go somewhere deeper. Here's the first thing you have to understand. Attention is a currency. And like all currencies, the people who need it most are the ones most controlled by whoever hands it out. Think about it like this. Imagine you're starving, and I'm the only person in the village with food. How much power do I have over you? Everything I ask, you'll do. Every direction I point, you'll walk. Because without what I have, you believe you'll die. That's what attention addiction does to a man. The people whose eyes you crave become the gods of your life. Their approval is oxygen. Their indifference is a slow death. And because you need them to see you, they will always have the upper hand. They can move you around like a piece on a board. They don't even have to be cruel about it. They just have to exist and withhold, and you'll do the rest to yourself. Call this concept the attention trap, because once you're inside it, every move you make is a move toward the cage, not away from it. The tragedy is, most men think the solution is to become more visible, to post more, to flex harder, to speak louder in meetings, to dress in a way that demands second looks. But this is like trying to cure your starvation by begging at the same door. You're not escaping the trap. You're becoming a better prisoner, a more polished prisoner, a prisoner with a nicer haircut. And here's the cruel part. The more you succeed inside the trap, the deeper you go. Because every glance you buy with your performance raises your tolerance. The dose that thrilled you last year is the baseline this year. The compliment that would have made you float for a week in your 20s barely registers in your 30s. You need more and more and more. And at some point you wake up and realize you've built an entire life optimized for a feeling you can no longer actually feel. The Stoic Emperor, Marcus Aurelius, wrote something in his private journal that he never intended anyone to read. He said that it is enough to be good, even if no one knows it. Let that sit. He was the most powerful man in the known world, and he was reminding himself daily that goodness did not require an audience. Why did he have to remind himself? Because even he felt the pull. Even emperors get pulled toward the trap. The pull is human. The pull is in the wiring. But the escape is available to anyone who wants it badly enough. And that escape doesn't start with doing more. It starts with seeing the trap clearly enough that it loses its hold. The first move out is just recognition. Just noticing, in real time, the moments when you're performing instead of living. Noticing the exact second you adjust your voice because someone important is listening. Noticing when you're telling a story not to share it, but to position yourself inside it. You don't have to fix any of it yet. You just have to see it. And once you start seeing it, something interesting happens. It becomes embarrassing. And the embarrassment is the beginning of freedom. Here's what the men who end up truly dangerous figure out early. There is a version of invisibility that is not a wound. It is a weapon. I call it the dark garden. Every serious man I have ever studied, every man whose life actually bent reality, had one. A private place, mental, physical, or both, where he worked in the absence of witnesses, where he trained, studied, built, prayed, read, struggled, failed, tried again, without a single eye on him, where he got to be the ugly, uncertain, fumbling version of himself that every real transformation requires, without having to manage anyone else's opinion of that version. In neuroscience, researcher Andrew Huberman at Stanford has described how the brain's reward system is dramatically different when you're performing for external validation versus when you're performing for internal mastery. One builds fragile motivation that collapses the moment the audience leaves. The other builds a kind of internal engine that runs with or without applause. The men with that engine are the ones who last. The men without it burn bright for a season and then vanish, and they spend the rest of their lives trying to figure out why the fire went out. But here's the thing. You cannot build that engine in public. It is literally impossible. Because the second you bring eyes into the process, The process changes. You start optimizing for how it looks instead of what it is. You start posting the workout instead of doing the workout. You start talking about the book instead of reading the book. You start describing the man you're becoming to people who will never see you become him. And in the telling, you drain the tank that was supposed to fuel the actual becoming. There's a word for this: premature broadcasting. The human brain treats the praise for the announcement almost identically to the praise for the achievement, which means the second you broadcast a goal and collect the likes, your nervous system believes you've already done the thing. The motivation drops, the fire cools, and you wonder, 3 weeks later, why you can't seem to follow through on the thing you were so excited about. The dark garden is sacred ground. It's the only place real transformation happens. And here's the cruel, beautiful truth about it. The world will never see you walk in. They will only see the man who eventually walks out. And that man will be unrecognizable. Think about this practically. What does your dark garden look like right now? Do you even have one? Is there a single pursuit in your life that you're doing purely for yourself, with no audience, no post, no mention? If the answer is no, that's your starting point. Pick one thing and make it private. Don't tell your girlfriend. Don't tell your best friend. Don't tell your mother. For the first time in a long time, do something that only you know you're doing. Watch what that does to you. Watch the way it starts to feel denser, more real, more yours, because it is. Now let's go deeper. There is a second gift inside invisibility that almost no one sees. When people underestimate you, they stop defending against you. Think about every story you've ever loved about an underdog. What's the common thread? The opponent was so sure the underdog was nothing that they let their guard down. The underdog walked in through a door that was left wide open precisely because no one believed he could find it. You are walking through that door right now, today, this week, every day that you feel overlooked at your job, in your family, in your social circle. You are being handed a gift most men would kill for. You are being left unguarded against. The people who dismissed you are not watching you. They are not copying your moves. They are not blocking your angles. They are busy watching the people they consider threats. They are burning their entire psychic budget on rivalries you're not even a part of. And while they burn, you quietly buy up the real estate they never even noticed was for sale. And while they're watching each other, you are free. Free to read, free to train, free to save, free to learn skills they don't even know exist, free to restructure your life in silence, free to become, over a period of 3, 5, 10 years, a man so different from the one they remember that when they finally look up, they won't understand what happened. There's a searchable concept for this: the quiet compounding effect. Small, invisible actions done daily with no audience produce results that look like miracles to everyone who wasn't paying attention. An hour a day of real study for 3 years is 1,000 hours. 1,000 hours of focused work in almost any domain makes you better than 90% of people in that field. And nobody will see those 1,000 hours except you. They will only see the result, and they will mistake it for luck or talent or timing. They will never understand that you were doing it in silence the whole time they were watching each other. And no one is paying attention to you right now. That's not a tragedy. That's your runway. One more thing on this. There's a real freedom that comes with being nobody's project. When the world has a label on you, high performer, rising star, the one to watch, there's a hidden cost. The label becomes a cage. You have to keep performing it. Every move is measured against who they decided you were. The invisible man has no label. He can pivot. He can fail in public without it denting his identity, because his identity was never pinned to the wall for everyone to see in the first place. You have a flexibility right now that the visible men would sell their souls for. Most of them don't even know they sold it. Let me tell you about a man who took this idea further than almost anyone in modern history. His name is Grigori Perelman. In 2002, a quiet Russian mathematician uploaded 3 papers to an online archive. No fanfare, no press release, no publisher, just 3 documents, posted like someone leaving a note on a bulletin board. Inside those papers was the solution to a problem called the Poincaré conjecture, a problem that had tortured the smartest mathematical minds on the planet for almost 100 years. To give you a sense of scale, this was one of 7 problems designated by the Clay Mathematics Institute as the most important unsolved problems in mathematics. Each one carried a $1 million prize. Perelman solved his, and then he did something that broke every rule of how success is supposed to work. He refused the money. He refused the Fields Medal, which is essentially the Nobel Prize of mathematics. He refused the speaking tours, the professorships, the magazine covers, the tenured chairs at Princeton and Stanford. He walked away from all of it, millions of dollars. The highest honor in his field, permanent financial security, guaranteed fame, all of it, no. He went home to St. Petersburg, to a small apartment he shared with his elderly mother, and he essentially disappeared. Reporters tried to find him. He wouldn't open the door. When one journalist finally got him to speak through the intercom, Perelman said something that stopped the entire academic world cold. He said that he was not interested in money or fame, that he did not want to be on display like an animal at the zoo, that if the proof was correct, no other recognition was needed. Let that hit you for a second. A man who could have had anything the world offers, anything, and he decided that the work itself was the reward, that being right was enough, that being seen being right was beside the point. Now, I'm not telling you to refuse $1 million if it shows up at your door. That's not the lesson. The lesson is what Perelman's life reveals about the nature of real power. He was untouchable, not because he was rich, not because he was famous, but because there was nothing the world could offer him, and nothing the world could take from him, that would change who he was. Think about what that means in practice. Every man you know who is chasing, who is hungry in that anxious way, who is posting and performing and proving, has a secret handle on his back that anyone can grab. The promise of the prize moves him. The threat of losing face moves him. He is, in a very real sense, property of the crowd's opinion of him. Perelman had no such handle. You could not bribe him. You could not shame him. You could not flatter him into a different life. He had already become the only thing any of those levers were supposed to produce. He had already arrived at himself. That is the end game. That is what the dark garden builds toward. A man whose center of gravity is so completely inside himself that the noise of the outside world becomes weather. Interesting sometimes uncomfortable, but never, ever, the thing that decides who he is. And here's the part I want you to carry home with you. Perelman didn't become that man on the day he solved the Poincaré conjecture. He became that man over decades of invisible work, decades of sitting in rooms alone with impossible problems, getting them wrong, starting over, with no one clapping, no one retweeting, no one even knowing his name. The refusal of the prize was just the final proof, to himself and to the world, that the work had already been the point the whole time. He didn't walk away from the money because he was above money. He walked away because the money and the medal and the chairs and the fame had already become irrelevant to him somewhere back in his 30s, in some apartment in St. Petersburg, alone with a problem nobody else could solve, at 2 in the morning, with no witnesses. That's where he became invincible. Everything after was just admin. Here's where I need you to slow down with me, because this is the part most men miss, and it's the part that changes everything. You might be listening to all this and starting to feel something hard forming in your chest, a kind of grim determination. Okay, you're thinking, I'll disappear, I'll go dark, I'll become a ghost, and I'll build in secret, and one day they'll all see. Stop, right there. That's the trap, wearing a new outfit. If your invisibility is fuel for revenge, you're still letting them pick your direction. You're just doing it more quietly. The work you do in the dark will be poisoned by the audience you're secretly performing for, even if that audience is only inside your head. And when you finally emerge, when the moment comes and they do see you, you'll feel empty. Because the whole time, it was never about you. It was about them. I've seen this so many times. A guy gets burned by a breakup, or a business partner, or a father. He goes quiet. He trains. He grinds. He builds. 4 years later, he's in a completely different tax bracket, a completely different body, a completely different life. And he tells me, off the record, that he still feels like garbage. Because the whole architecture was built on proving something to people who barely remember him. The house went up. The foundation was poison. And you can feel the poison in the floorboards every time you walk across them. The only path that works, the only one, is the one that starts with something that sounds almost absurd given what I've been telling you. You have to love the man you are right now. The invisible version. The overlooked version. The one who gets passed over. That one. Before any of the work begins. Because if you don't, you'll spend the next 10 years building a version of yourself that you think will finally be worthy of love. And when you get there, you'll discover the same ache waiting for you. Because the ache was never about them. It was about you not being able to look at yourself and say, this man is enough, even if nobody ever claps. I had to learn this the hard way. Years ago, I remember sitting on a bench in a park in the middle of a weekday, watching people walk past me, and realizing I was hunting their glances. Actually, hunting them. Trying to catch a stranger's eye so I could feel real. And I had this terrible clarity in that moment. I had turned myself into a beggar. And beggars don't build empires. They just survive another day. The turn came when I started doing one small thing. Every morning, before anything else, I would stand in front of the mirror and I would look at the man looking back and I would speak to him like he mattered. Not affirmations, not fake stuff, just honest acknowledgement. I would say, I see you. I know what you're carrying. I know what you did yesterday that no one noticed. And I'm proud of you. It felt ridiculous for the first 2 weeks. I almost quit. I remember standing there one morning feeling like a complete fraud, talking to a mirror like some self-help caricature. But I stayed with it. And then something started to crack open. The hunger for external eyes started to loosen its grip. Not all at once. Slowly. Like a fist that had been clenched for 30 years, finally starting to relax. One morning, I caught myself not checking my phone for 2 hours after I woke up. Not because I was disciplined about it, because I genuinely hadn't thought of it. That might sound like nothing to you. To me, it was an earthquake. It meant that for the first time in my adult life, the day had started without the question, who noticed me? It had started with me, just being there. That's the real move. Become the one who sees you first. Become your own witness. Not because nobody else will, but because once you are, everything else in your life reorganizes around a stronger center. You stop needing people the way you used to, which, paradoxically, makes you more attractive to them. But that's not the point anymore, because you don't need that either. The machine runs without their fuel. The man stands without their scaffolding. And from that place, real work becomes possible. Not revenge work. Not proving work, real work, the kind of work a man does because the work itself is worth doing. The kind of work Perelman was doing in that apartment for decades, when nobody even knew his name. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down. Tonight, sit with yourself for 10 minutes. No phone, no scrolling, just you and the quiet. And ask yourself one question. If nobody ever saw the work I was about to do for the next 5 years, would I still do it? Because that's the question that separates the men who build real lives from the men who build performances. That's the question Perelman answered at 30, alone in a room in St. Petersburg. And everything after was just the working out of that one answer. That's the question Marcus Aurelius asked himself in his private journal, by candlelight, while an empire slept around him. It's not a new question. It's the only question that has ever mattered. And if the answer is no, you don't need to panic. You just need to know you've been performing. And the performance has been killing you slowly. And the good news, the news that should make your shoulders drop 2 inches tonight, is that you can stop. You can walk off the stage. You can go home to yourself. Start this week. Pick one thing that matters to you and make it private. Don't announce it. Don't post it. Don't hint at it. Just do it in the dark for you. And notice how different the doing feels when the doing is the whole point. Notice how quiet your nervous system gets when it's not being asked to also manage an audience. Notice how fast the work actually moves when you're not spending half your energy describing it. The men who end up dangerous, truly dangerous, in the best sense of that word, are not the loudest ones in the room. They are the ones you didn't notice walking in, because they've already done the one thing most men never do. They've become the kind of man who doesn't need to be noticed to exist. And once you don't need it, something strange happens. The noticing finds you anyway, but by then, you don't care, which is exactly what makes you impossible to leverage. You were not made to be ordinary, and the fact that the world doesn't see you yet is not evidence that you're nothing. It's evidence that your work is still private, still sacred, still yours. Guard that, build inside it, and let the rest take care of itself. Invisible men are never ordinary. They're just men whose time hasn't arrived yet. And when it does, the people who missed them won't be the ones who get to define what they became. You will.